What is up, guys? It's time for another top 10. I had such a good time doing my top 10 favorite slashers of all time quite a few months ago that I thought, you know what, there's so many that A, I've seen since then of those classic slashers, and B, this year there have been a couple of slashers that I didn't get to include in that list. So I thought, wouldn't it be fun to throw together another list for you guys, because there's so many slashers out there, and just to give you 10 doesn't really do the trick. So I got 10 new slashers and 3 honorable mentions. So you're gonna get 13 slasher recommendations here. Don't weigh too much on the number for this countdown. I will save a couple of my favorites for the last couple, but you know, 10 down to like 3. Don't weigh too much on the ranking position. You know, all these are great, fun slashers, so keep that in mind. And also, I posted on Killer Flicks and Twitter just to try to get some ideas, just in case I might miss out on a couple. And I did find a couple that I really liked that I thought, hey, I'll add that to the list. So anyway, first off, let's do the 3 honorable mentions. First up is gonna be Child's Play 2. Child's Play 2 is my favorite out of the whole franchise, actually. I like it even better than the first. I think Child's Play 2 does everything that a good sequel should do. I think Brad Dourif is really like on his A game in this one. He has found his stride, and Child's Play 2 has some of the best lines out of the whole franchise, actually. It's hilarious. And Christina Elise really does well with Alex Vincent as Andy in this one. I really was rooting for those two, and I think when you have 2 characters that play so well off of each other in a slasher movie, that just adds to it. And then that final act at the Toy Factory, have to mention that. It's such a great final act. One of my favorite slasher final acts, actually. Okay, my second honorable mention is gonna be Friday the 13th, Part 2. Now, if you remember on my last list, I had the final chapter on there, which is one of my favorite slashers ever. Part 2 is definitely worthy to mention, and sometimes I even like Part 2 better than all the other Friday movies. You know, I go back and forth between 2 and 4, but I think Part 2 has a very likable cast, actually. Some of the sexiest ladies, I think, are in Part 2. You got Jenny, who is probably my favorite final girl out of the whole franchise. Some of the best kills are in this one with the wheelchair kill. You know, I remember seeing this movie and thinking, there's no way that Jason's gonna kill this guy in the wheelchair. And sure enough, he does. And it's probably one of the most brutal kills out of the whole show. So yeah, it's great. And then, of course, Sackhead Jason. This was the first appearance of Jason in the franchise. Sean Cunningham never even thought about bringing Jason back. And I like Sackhead Jason. I know some people prefer Hockey Mask Jason. That is the icon. But I actually like some good old Sackhead Jason from time to time. I think he could have been a little bit better. You know, the overalls weren't really needed. But I will say one of the most chilling scenes out of the whole franchise is with Sackhead Jason at the end when he crashes through the window on Jenny. That is an iconic scene, and I have to give it credit. Okay, and my third honorable mention is going to be a newer movie. Well, not really newer, I guess it's 90s, but Urban Legend. Urban Legend, I think, is one of the better 90s slashers. There's Scream, and then for me, number 2 is probably Urban Legend. By the way, guys, there are going to be some spoilers in this, so just setting you guys up, 3, 2, 1. The killer in Urban Legend. I loved Rebecca Gayheart as the killer in this. I think she's one of the best killers of the 90s slashers, actually, because she's completely batshit crazy. Everybody loves a good batshit crazy killer, right? Plus, you got a great cast in this one. Jared Leto was in this one. Small little cameo from Robert Englund. But the big thing about Urban Legend that I love is the premise. You know, everybody loves those urban legends, those stories that, you know, you don't dare think are true, but they're just fun to talk about. And this has all those great scenarios in one movie. So who could ask for more? Okay, guys, here we go. The top 10 countdown. Number 10 is going to be, wouldn't you know it, this is December, a holiday slasher, Silent Night, Deadly Night. I think Silent Night, Deadly Night is actually one of the better slashers out there. And I think the controversy around it really adds to the mystique of the movie, actually. When this came out, you know, it was quickly removed from theaters because, you know, the idea of Santa Claus raping one of the victims is pretty crazy. Today you would probably get away with that, but back then it was pretty intense. And then the idea of a Santa Claus killer, I think, is a lot of fun in this movie. You got some great lines like punish, And I like the approach of this one. This one really tells the story of the actual killer from the killer's point of view. Most slashers, you focus on the prey, but this one focuses on the actual killer. And I love that about Silent Night, Deadly Night, actually. And then, of course, I got to mention Linnea Quigley. She is always a welcome addition to any slasher movie. Loved her in this movie. And you got that famous antler kill, which is completely insane. Number 9 is going to be Prom Night, a good old 80s slashers. You know, for 80s slashers, you got your B level and then you got your A level. I consider Prom Night an A level. You have a great production there. You got some top tier actors. Jamie Lee Curtis this is probably one of my favorite Jamie Lee Curtis performances aside from Halloween. And I like, it's kind of a twist on this because Jamie Lee Curtis is supposed to be our final girl. But really the best chase scene in the movie is not with Jamie Lee Curtis. It's with the girl in the red dress. Because it's the brother of Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie. I can't remember her character's name. But it's the brother that actually ends up being the killer. So he's not going to kill his sister. I don't know, maybe he will. But also you got that great soundtrack to this. Beth S. actually sent me the vinyl of that right back there for Prom Night. And then also you got that really creepy opening with the kids. The killer is coming, the killer is coming. And this was one of those 80s slashers that had the creepy phone calls, you know, like When a Stranger Calls. But aesthetically, I like those scenes too because the guy's got the pencil and he keeps like flipping the pencil. Okay guys, I'm gonna go to number 8, but I just realized looking at my list, I actually had 15 instead of 13. So before I give you my number 1, I'm gonna give you 2 more honorable mentions. How's that for professional? Okay, number 8 is Psycho 2. I think this is one of the most underrated sequels out there because to follow up Psycho is one thing, but to follow up Psycho 22 years later is another. And I was just completely interested in this story, actually. You know, what is the fallout of the first movie? Where do we find Norman Bates after all this? Because you would think he would be in a mental ward his whole life, but he is released. And what I love about this movie is that he's not really the killer throughout the whole movie. He is really just trying to put his life back together. But he has Marion Crane's sister coming around trying to screw up his life, trying to set him up, and trying to really ultimately get him back in jail. And I just love the story. I love Anthony Perkins' performance in this movie, how he slowly starts slipping back into madness. And then eventually by the end, he's like talking to his mother. That scene on the phone where he like switches the phone from one ear to the other. So many great things about this one. Meg Tilly is fantastic in this, actually. But this also has one of my favorite slasher kills. When Marion Crane's sister gets it right in the freaking mouth. That is a brutal ass kill. Number 7 is going to be Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. How could I not mention this one? I think Dream Warriors is what every sequel should strive to be. It's like what Terminator 2 is to Terminator. It's so big. It's one of the few slashers that really just ups the ante on every single level. You got a major character from the first movie coming back with Heather Langenkamp playing Nancy again. And really going out with a bang. You know, she dies at the end of the movie, but she dies in such an honorable, such a respectful way. You got major characters like John Saxon coming back. Freddy is at the top of his game. This is the start of Freddy going into the comedy zone, but all the comedy hits perfectly in this one. It's just a great script by Frank Darabont. And also the Dream Warriors. I mean, you have so many great nightmare sequences in Dream Warriors. It's one of the most rewatchable movies out of the whole bunch. I could go on and on about Dream Warriors, actually. Dokken, freaking Dokken. Number 6 is one that I watched this year for the first time, Hell Night with Linda Blair. I'm so in love with Linda Blair. And Hell Night is just a really good old, it's almost like a haunted house slasher. Because you know, you get this group of young people and they're holed up in this creepy house overnight, you know, because there's like a story there. There's a legend there of this family that lived in the house, and they're kind of like mongoloids or Sasquatches. They look like Sasquatches, but you know, this is another one of those slashers that has a really interesting killer, you know, a unique take on a killer, and I like that about Hell Night. And it's just got a creepy atmosphere all the way through. You know, when you mix slashers with haunted houses, you can't really go wrong. And then you throw Linda Blair in the mix. It's just so fun. Number 5 is a movie from this year, Strangers Pray at Night. This is probably one of my biggest surprises of the last couple of years because I was really excited for this movie, but I didn't think it was going to be that good. And when I came out of the theater, I think I was just so freaking elated by this movie. And you know, I like that this is just like a family. This movie focuses on a family. And early on in the movie, or about in the middle of the movie, the kids pretty much have to fend for themselves because their parents are killed. And from this point on, I think it really just pulls out all the stops. The pool scene is one of the most iconic scenes in a slasher movie I've seen in years, actually. You got Damian Maffei. I can't believe I'm saying Damian Maffei is my friend, but Damian Maffei as the masked killer, and then the two killer sidekicks, Dollface and the pinup girl, or whatever you call her. You know, it's just so good to have not one killer, but 3 killers going against 2 teenagers. 2 teenagers, people. And the biggest complaint I hear about this movie is that if I was in that situation, I wouldn't react that way. If you were a teenager and you were being chased by 3 professional killers, I don't think you would fare that well. And I think you would probably make some stupid decisions. So I love defending this movie. It's got a great score, great soundtrack at the end. I love that moment with the air supply and then the Bonnie Tyler at the pool. Yeah, I could go on and on. I love Strangers Prey at Night. It's one of my favorite slashers of the past couple years. Number 4, no surprise here, gotta have a Halloween movie in the bunch, and why not put the newest one in there? Halloween 2018 is still my favorite movie of this year, and it definitely belongs in this countdown. Michael Myers is freaking back. If you take anything away from this movie, I know people have problems with certain parts of this movie, with Sartain as a character, but the one thing that everybody can agree on is that Michael Myers is freaking back, and he is brutal as hell. He's amazing in this movie. But I like Sartain as a character. I like the risks that this movie takes with the story. To me, this just was probably the best Halloween movie since the first, and that's no easy task given how great some of the sequels are. Halloween 2, Halloween 4, Halloween 6, in my opinion. You know, there's a reason why Halloween is my favorite franchise. You know, I'm just so invested in these characters, and Halloween 2018 brought the franchise back, in my opinion, and it belongs on this countdown. Oh, and by the way, Carpenter's score, I have listened to Carpenter's score on vinyl probably at least once a week since I got it. You know, it's just the best score, I think, since the original. Number 3 is a movie that I just reviewed, actually, Blood Rage. First time I saw that was this year, and I loved the hell out of Blood Rage for so many reasons. Such a unique killer, and you got two twins, Terry and Todd, and Terry is the killer, and Mark Soper is so good in this role. You get a little bit of that Patrick Bateman vibe from him, but he's just completely insane, completely psychotic. You have some awesome kills, a great score in this movie. Opens up with a drive-in movie theater, and it's set on Thanksgiving, which is an added bonus. Everybody loves a good holiday slasher. But also there's a lot of comedy in Blood Rage. It's a lot of fun. You got the That's Not Cranberry Sauce line. You know, and it's got the bad acting, but the bad acting that works so well. You know, it's the epitome of like a B-level slasher, and it's so fun on every level. Number 2 is gonna be Sleepaway Camp 2. I love when a sequel has balls and tries to go a completely different direction than the first movie, because how do you top that ending of the first movie? So they made this more of like a tongue-in-cheek horror comedy. And the character of Angela this time around is played by Pamela Springsteen, and I love the direction they took with this character. You know, she's completely demented. She's always in like a perky, fun mood, and she just happens to kill everybody that she comes in contact with. This one has so much great comedy in it, but it's also got some awesome kills. And you know, it's another great camp slasher. I freaking love camp slashers. Sleepaway Camp 2 is one of the better camp slashers out there, I think. And I think it's highly underrated too. People don't talk about Sleepaway Camp 2 that much. And maybe that's because, you know, the character Angela is very different in this movie than in the first movie. But this one knows what it is. You know, it even like pokes fun at other slasher icons, which is awesome. And also, as I promised, 2 more recommendations. First off, real quick, the Prowler. I think the Prowler is like one of the best slashers in terms of kills. Savini was in his prime in this movie, and there are some pretty damn crazy kills in the Prowler, actually. It's a little slow in some parts, but I think it's got a very memorable killer. And I like that the killer's like, you know, he's an older guy. He's like in his, I think, 50s or 60s. And it's got one of those, you know, what the hell endings too, which is always fun. And then the last honorable mention is gonna be House on Sorority Row. I actually did kind of a unique review on this one because I watched it, I reviewed it, I set it aside. A couple months later, I watched it again and recorded my second viewing thoughts, and that was a lot of fun. And it's a really good slasher. It's one that I really enjoy, actually. One thing I love about this one is the cast. It's got a great female cast, a lot of memorable characters, especially Eileen Davidson, who is like, you know, I guess the sex pot of the movie. And then you got Kate McNeil, who I think is a pretty damn good final girl, actually. But I also like the story of this one too, how you got this kid that has some severe mental problems, and so the mother's trying to keep him hidden away, and he's going around killing all these sorority girls. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It's another one of those slashers that has an A-level feel to it. And then my number one is gonna be Happy Birthday to Me. I think Happy Birthday to Me is so underrated, actually. And I think movies like Scream, you know, that are known for their twists, owe a huge debt to Happy Birthday to Me because it has not one, but quite a few twists, actually, at the end. It almost goes a little bit too far, but it's just such a fun ride. And I think Melissa Sue Anderson gives a phenomenal performance in this because she has to go batshit crazy. And there's so many times where you're wondering, is she the killer? Is she not the killer? You never can tell. But this one is very famous for the shish kebab kill too, which is a really well done scene, actually, you know, because it's simple as hell. You know, the guy opens his mouth and she just like jams the shish kebab right there, right in his mouth. So it's pretty crazy. And I can't not talk about that last scene where you got all these corpses around the table and they're celebrating her birthday. And it's just a creepy scene. And it's just like everything you would want in a slasher movie. So anyway, guys, that is it. I gave you 15 more slashers to recommend. If I missed any, which I'm sure I did, let me know down in the comments some of your favorite slashers. I didn't include a lot of the later like 90s and millennial slashers in this one, so maybe I'll do another countdown of just those down the road. But I love talking slashers. So post in the comments your favorites. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day, and on Fridays we do Free for All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.